coming through.
Would you like to test a super zoom? That's what the owner of a nearby camera store dared to ask me just a couple of weeks ago. And I say dare to ask because we all know that a lens with such a huge zoom range must be a terrible compromise and cannot be considered for any serious photography. Or can it? I decided to put my preconceived notions aside and give it a fair test during a short family camping trip. This is the Tamron 18-300 f3.5 to 6.3 III-A VC VXD. Basically that means it's a lens that zooms from 18mm all the way up to 300mm. It has a linear focus motor and it has its built-in vibration reduction system, also known as image stabilization. Like most, if not all super zooms, it has a variable aperture. This one starts from f3.5 at 18mm all the way up to 6.3 at 300mm. As you can see, it's not crazy big. Also, it's not very heavy. And although it doesn't feel as sturdy as the lenses that I'm used to use, it doesn't feel flimsy either. There is no aperture ring on this lens, just a focus ring and the zoom ring, and there's a lock to prevent the lens from extending while walking around. Definitely if you carry a camera like this, it might creep out a bit. I haven't experienced that, but the lens is still pretty new, so it might change or become a bit loose over time, and in that case the lock will be a good addition. So feature-wise and build quality-wise, the €750 price tag doesn't seem too bad for a lens like this. But we'll have to see it in practice, because that's the only thing that really counts. Like I said, I took this lens with me on a short family camping trip, as I figured that this would be the ideal situation to test this lens out. Lots of different situations, and because it was not a photography trip, I didn't want to carry around a lot of gear, so it was one lens to rule them all. Oh, by the way, I shot all these pictures with the X-H2S, but also tried it on the X-T3 and got pretty similar results. To be honest, I wasn't expecting too much image quality-wise from this lens, but I have to admit that I've been very pleasantly surprised. Sure, it's not on par with my really nice Fuji prime lenses or high-end zoom lenses, but it held its own pretty well. I would even go as far as to say that most of my professional clients wouldn't notice that an image was taken by this super zoom lens. There may be a bit of distortion on the wide end, and all the way zoomed in, the sharpness lacks a little bit, but honestly, you can probably easily fix that in post anyway. So no big deal. The colors, the contrast, the bokeh, they are not exceptional, but they are not bad either, so I'm pretty neutral about that. And there is an airplane. Fucking hell. I'm really trying to record this video, but my neighbors are extremely noisy, and then there are airplanes and the sun keeps going in and out, but it'll just have to do because I have to return the lens tomorrow, so bear with me. The autofocus is fast, smooth and near silent. I even tried some follow focus video shots and it worked pretty well. Part of that is to attribute to the X-H2S autofocus system, which is really blowing my mind still. But kudos to Tamron for making a lens that can keep up with that autofocus algorithm. I had no issues with face detection, eye detection, subject detection. It all worked fine. As far as I can tell, the vibration reduction in the lens worked well too in combination with the IBIS of the XH2S. I was able to use pretty slow shutter speeds in photography, and I was able to do very stable video shots, even zoomed in quite a lot. Zooming in and out was fast and smooth. Generally, I don't like lenses that extend too much when zooming because it changes the balance of the camera in your hands, but the bulk of the weight seems to be in the first part of the lens, which makes it pretty easy to zoom in and out. Now here comes the biggest downside. If you like razor thin depth of field, this lens is not for you. And personally, I'm not a fan of variable aperture zoom lenses because I tend to shoot a lot in manual wide open, and wide open is not the same at 18mm and at 300mm. So if you don't want to keep changing your settings all the time, you're stuck with 6.3 because that is the biggest aperture you get at 300mm. And even at the wide end, f3.5 isn't exactly the god of light gathering. And that to me is where the Tamron and pretty much any super zoom lens shows its limitations. Granted, with the high ISO capabilities of the modern cameras and all the forms of image stabilization, it's less of a problem than it was 10 years or even 5 years ago. And so in many cases you can get away by just boosting the ISO a little bit more and still get an acceptable shot. But on the other hand, a faster aperture would mean that the lens would get much bigger, heavier and more expensive. So again, it's a compromise. All in all, you could say that this Tamron is a compromise. But Tamron did a good, exceptional, even balancing act and make the perfect compromise. So in this case, compromise might not be a bad thing. The lens doesn't shine at anything, but it also doesn't suck at anything. I've been impressed with this super zoom. I didn't think I'd find it a usable lens, but it's actually very capable. But still, it's not for me. And that's not the lens's fault, it's just the way my weird photographer's brain works. That super zoom gives me too many options, and that makes me lose focus, makes me lose intention. My brain works best with a prime and the limitations of a fixed focal length. But if I was starting out right now, or if I had to build a kit on a limited budget, I would definitely consider getting this Tamron lens. Preferably in combination with a fast prime, a fast all-round prime like the XF33mm. I would probably shoot most of my work with the 33, like I do right now, but I would have the Tamron to fill in all the other gaps and to get away with pretty much any situation. I never imagined doing a video on the super zoom, but I thought some of you might be interested. If you're looking for a very versatile travel lens, or if you're on a budget and you try to cover a big range, I think it is an excellent option. And doing this video also means that I did 2 videos in 1 month. See you in the next one.
Get it.